This Prabhupada translates it as spiritual master usually. Uh, and the scripture says you have to accept the guru and you have to dedicate everything to him. And if you are devoted to guru, then all the meanings of scripture are revealed. So, in other words, it's necessary to get knowledge of scripture through a guru. So, therefore, in not only Gaudiya's line, but in general, let's say in Vedic times, there's emphasis on guru, and all different sampradayas also have an emphasis upon guru. And it's obviously there because scripture is saying that from the Upanishads, etc. And that is repeated in the Puranas and the Smritis, etc. So the idea of accepting a guru as being is uh, a necessity. The question arises, of course, well, we have scripture, so why do we need the guru? Uh, so yes, scripture is good, and particularly now because we get scripture readily available. So, okay, in ancient times, even the scripture was oral, so you had to receive it from another person. So in that sense, somebody has to speak to you scripture and explain it. So even if you don't get the explanation, even just to get the content of the scripture, you need somebody to speak who would be a guru also. So in that sense, necessary. But more than just getting the text or the words, we do also need explanation. What does it mean? And how do we apply that those instructions in our life? So also that it has to be, it may not be there in the uh, scripture itself, and then we have to have someone explain that to us. So in this way, there's since ancient times there was that type of dependency just to get the information and the explanation. Apart from that, of course, the emphasis has always been on personal interaction, and that you can't just learn things by some mechanical means. Maybe to some extent you can get material knowledge that way, but even material knowledge also, to some degree, do have to get some personal instruction. So if you want to be a carpenter, you can learn things from a book or whatever. But if you get a nice carpenter, he can give you some nice tips so that you can do it nicely and expertly. So usually, any expert woodworker, carpenter, or whatever, sculptor, wood, whatever, he will have some teacher who has personally taught him some things. uh, if you want to be a good painter or a sculptor or whatever, then you go to someone who's well known for doing that. So, for instance, Italy in the Renaissance, they had some famous painters. So, if you want to be a good painter, you go to that painter and learn from him rather than experiment on your own. So, all of these different expert painters had people that were their teachers, and they learned so much from them. So, the idea of a teacher, apart from whatever theory is there and whatever scripture is there, and they give you practical information. But that's, of course, material. So, spiritually speaking, there is this other factor, and that is realization, and in our case, devotion. And we say that without devotion, you cannot understand scripture. So, without devotion, whoever speaks to you also is not speaking anything. So, they have to have devotion. So if we hear from a Vaishnava, fine. If we hear from a non-Vaishnava, it's all poison. So that also we can say that the realization and the faith uh, of the speaker uh, is necessary to transmit the proper spirit of the scripture, apart from all the other things that you can do. So therefore, in this sense, the we can maybe that's the most important part of what the guru does. Yeah. So fortunately, a lot of the meaning and let's say the details of how to perform bhakti, etc., if they are not there in the scripture itself, they are explained through the commentaries. So we do have in our Sampradaya many commentaries available. Rupa Goswami's written commentaries, Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami written commentaries. Then we have later on, we have Vishnu Chakravarti and Bala, but Busan writing commentaries, particularly on Bhagavatam. So in this way, it makes it a little easier. And we could say, well, then we don't need the guru because we got that. But as I said, you do need the personal person plus the devotional aspect there. So you can read all the commentaries, but if you're not a devotee and you don't have a devotee instructor, you come out with a different meaning. So just like the scripture itself, even the commentaries are subject to the same criteria. So if it is spoken by a person with devotion, then you will get better meaning to it. So in this way, the idea of guru is necessary even in the modern age, though we're not dependent upon oral instruction completely. And we have all sorts of communication methods and recording and everything like that, and printed word, etc. Still, the necessity is there, because it has to come through a devotee, and there are details which are not explained even in the commentaries or whatever. So therefore, that's why, uh, in spite of the technology of the modern world, we still have the necessity of guru. So if we look in Bhagavatam, we will see that um, it is always a matter of question and answer. The sages Naimisaranya asking Sudha Goswami, Parikshit asking Sukadeva Goswami. And of course, within the Bhagavatam, then we get questions and answers, and we have Uddhava asking questions, Krishna giving answers. If you go to Vishnu Purana, we have Maitreya asking questions and Parasara Muni giving answers. So we find that the main aspect here is that one person is there as the guru, and he's giving knowledge to another person, so he becomes the Shiksha Guru. So that is quite obvious through the Bhagavatam that one person is teaching, one is receiving, and therefore we have a guru-disciple relationship. So that is, we could say, the primary function of the guru, to impart knowledge of scripture to the disciple. And because you have to go through guru, then we have, and if we want to learn the scripture and advance in devotional service, then we have to give proper respect to the guru. Respect itself, of course, is also, you can say, nicely defined and codified in the scriptures. So what does respect consist of? And there are all sorts of formalities involved in that, such as don't step on the guru's shadow or whatever. Don't sleep on his bed. So all sorts of rules we have for that. But ultimately, the main aspect is, and of course, offer respect, but more important than the physical aspect is the mental aspect, which means obedience. So, of course, all of these other things are there to get that obedience, and all the physical manifestations of rules is there. But to manifest that obedience in the mind, and what does that obedience mean? That is expressed when we use the word pranipat. As we say in Bhagavad Gita, you approach the Guru with pranipat, prashna, and seva. So pranipat. Pot means to fall. Nipat means to fall down, which means you're on the ground. And pra means extremely, which ultimately, of course, physically we can say pranamas are there. But in the mental sense, we can say surrender. So what this means is that in approaching for knowledge, we have to admit we don't have any knowledge, that we are ignorant. And therefore we depend on another person to give it. And to do that, then we have to have this humble attitude of being ignorant and fallen. And so that is what the pranipat is. And then the guru speaks, and then we're ready to accept it. If we are proud, that means we think we know already. So what is the use of the Guru teaching anything? If you think you already know it, and he's just saying, "I already know," and all that, so you're never going to learn anything. So therefore, that pranipad is necessary, and that is, of course, worship and everything is one aspect of that. And so we do guru pujas and things. So ultimately, it's only for that, to give the respect and to understand that we're in a fallen position, and therefore we take the knowledge coming downwards, and, just like water flows downwards naturally. So knowledge also goes downwards like that. That's the method of receiving knowledge, like the water falling down. So very necessary. Uh, and of course, the hearer or the disciple has to be qualified, one by the obedience and humility, etc. And secondly, by pariprashna, questioning, thorough questioning. Pari means thorough or absolute. So he has to thoroughly question. And we'll see, for instance, in different works in the Bhagavatam, the sages begin by asking questions, 6 questions they ask. So that's their questions, and Bhagavatam is the answer to that. Similarly, in Vishnu Purana, Maitreya asks all these questions. I think he asks 26 questions, and then Parasar Muni begins to reply, and that becomes that Purana. So the disciple also has to be qualified with a desire to know about that particular subject. If he's going for a guru for spiritual knowledge, then he has to be inquisitive about getting knowledge by which you can attain the goal. So one has to have that desire for knowledge. If we don't have a desire for knowledge, we don't get knowledge. So we have to have a desire. So as well as the humility, you can be very humble, but if you don't want to learn anything, it's still not a good disciple. So to be eager for the knowledge, which means you ask the right questions. So therefore, that pariprashna is also important. The third thing mentioned in Bhagavad Gita is seva. So seva, of course, means we are physically doing things to help the guru. Uh, so part of that is an expression of the pranipad, that we are obedient, etc. So therefore, we're willing to serve. The more esoteric part, of course, is that we're willing to follow the instructions. So whatever teachings are given by guru, then we're willing to implement them. So knowledge of scripture consists of several things. One is the philosophical aspect, but that's not complete in itself. So we need to define a goal, which of course is supported by the philosophy. And then we have to have a process to get to the goal, which is the abhideya. And that consists of action. So it is no longer theoretical. So we have to do things based on scripture. In Karma Mimamsa philosophy, they say that the main import of scripture is action. You are ordered to do things, and you should follow that. So this is, we can say, one aspect of the scriptures, along with philosophy. It is ordering us to do certain things. Therefore, action is necessary. So we learn the scripture. As a result of that, then we should do something. So the guru instructs the scripture, then we have to start implementing that. So that is, we can say, the more esoteric part of the service. So in this way, the disciple is qualified because he is inquisitive, he's willing to follow the instructions properly, and he's willing to accept all the knowledge. So that makes a good disciple. As I said, the guru has to be qualified by his devotion. If he's not a devotee of Vaishnava, then what he speaks is poison, even if it's Bhagavatam. So, Putam Hari Katamritam, topics of Hari are Puta or pure, like milk. But if spoken by the non-Vaishnava, becomes poison. Same with the holy name coming out of non-Vaishnava, it becomes poison. Scriptures, Bhagavad Gita coming from a non-Vaishnava, poison. Bhagavatam from a non-Vaishnava, poison. So, qualification of a devotee, of a guru, then he should be Vaishnava, have devotion. When he speaks, then it becomes pure. But then we have different types of Vaishnavas. So when it talks about coming from the mouth of a Vaishnava, we're talking about pure Vaishnava, not mixed Vaishnava. This, of course, means that you're at least a Madhyama, not a Kanishta. Kanishta is like a mixed devotee. So we come to the Madhyama level where we accept with faith the Bhakti scriptures. We're willing to accept guidance from Guru. We associate with devotees. We avoid the non-devotees. Worship Lord. So, but in the worship, that worship should be pure worship, not mixed with material motives. So that's the level at least we have to be at. So, but within that Madhyama category, of course, there are going to be many gradations. There's a beginning of a Madhyama, middle, upper, whatever. And the higher one is, as a Vaishnava, then the more potent the instructions become. Just like if we have a microphone, okay. So that's like the medium of the message. The message is coming, the sound is coming through the microphone. Now, if the non-Vaishnav speaks, we're not getting the spiritual message at all, we're getting something else. So that's like your microphone all rattly and making all sorts of crazy noises when the person speaks. We don't even get any message, we just get a bunch of noise. Not valuable at all. So when we get a Vaishnav speaking, then at least we can hear the message properly, like the microphone is working properly. But if we get the higher Vaishnavas speaking, then the words are even more clear. Like a perfect microphone, we have different grades of microphones. Maybe like Bose is one's category. We have some cheap something like that else. So it's very good, and we get the message more intact, like that. Yeah. So the more we have the purity of the devotee, then the more we get the pure message coming through, and this becomes more inspiring for us. So in this way, then you have to be a devotee, and the more fixed they are, then the better the message comes through, and the more we get value from it. So then the guru has to be qualified, and the devotee has to be qualified. When both are there, and then the transfer of knowledge takes place. And according to the level of the devotee, according to the level of guru, then we get less or more transmission of the proper knowledge. Well, that's the basic idea of what guru is in relation to the disciple. We do have a specialization of guru when we have diksha gurus or initiating gurus. This, of course, is, we can say, as far as Bhagavad is concerned, it's very secondary. So probably only 2 or 3 places in Bhagavatam it talks about diksha. And most of the time only the shiksha is going on. We don't know, did Narada initiate Vedavyas? We don't know, but he gave instructions. Yeah? And Narada Muni instructs Brahma. Does it give him initiation? I don't know. Or no, so Brahma instructs Narada, but we don't know about initiation or whatever. And did Sukadeva initiate Parikshit? No, probably not. So, but more important, that was the Shiksha. But anyway, we do have things like Diksha, and that became important partially because of Archana or deity worship, which is a little exclusive. and it's part of Pancharatra. And we say it's one of the main aspects of Pancharatra, the worship of the deity and holding festivals for the deity. So, if you're following Pancharatra, then you should worship the deity. If you want to worship the deity, you have to take Pancharatra Diksha and get mantras to worship the deity with. Mm, mm. So, as far as Pancharatric scripture is concerned, then you need Diksha. Mm. So, previous to Lord Chaitanya, then most of our Vaishnava sampradayas were dependent on Pancharatra, and therefore they have to emphasize Diksha. You're not a Vaishnava unless you get Diksha, because you can't worship the deity unless you're got Diksha. And if you don't worship the deity, you're not a Vaishnava. So Vaishnavism and worship of the deity and Diksha all kind of went together as a single unit. So we'll see in those scriptures, therefore, it says, if you don't take initiation, you're useless. Because you can't worship the deity, and you can't worship the deity, you're not a Vaishnava. So then, the two things are kind of implicit in each other. With Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's changed the emphasis. And instead of deity worship, Nam Sankirtan is the main method for everybody. And Harinam does not require Diksha. It's just chant the holy name. And of course, qualification is much less, and we still get effect. So therefore, the idea about Diksha that becomes less important for us in Lord Chaitanya's movement, theoretically at least. Lord Chaitanya, of course, took Diksha, Nityananda took Diksha, Advaitacharya took Diksha, Gadadhar took Diksha, etc. But as far as I can see, they didn't worship the deity much with that, so it was more a formality than actually using it, pancharatrically speaking. On the other hand, we find that Gopakumar in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he also got Diksha mantra from his guru. He also didn't worship the deity, but he used that mantra. He did not do Nam Sankirtan. He chanted that mantra as japa for himself for a whole day of Brahma. So that Pancharatra Diksha mantra can be used not only for deity worship, but for internal worship or meditation.
Maharaj, sorry to interrupt. There has been some comment that the sound is a bit low. Maharaj, can you
Oh,
use microphone?
okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
So, therefore, the emphasis has changed with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu concerning the mantra and Harinam. So the mantra is there for Pancharatra, and that requires Diksha, but chanting the holy name is more powerful for us and is our main sadhana. And therefore, the chanting of Diksha mantras, either as meditation or even in deity worship, is not the main element. So therefore, the Diksha becomes less important. As, we see our philosophy and what it is much less important. And simply chanting the holy name is important. But what about the teachings? So we see that, yes, Lord Chaitanya says, Harinama Eva Kevalam. But only the holy name, only the holy name, only the holy name. But if we look at the conduct of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did just chant the holy name. He did many other things. Yet he went to the Jagannath temple every day. He was taking prasadam. He's associating with devotees, hearing Bhagavatam every day. So all those things are there. They're never rejected. But emphasis upon Nam Sankirtan as the main element. So therefore, there's nothing wrong with the Diksha. And of course, I said Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, they all took Diksha, but emphasis is more on Harinam for our spiritual development. So, and when we're having the Harinam, then it is independent of everything else. But we see that Lord Chaitanya particularly instructed the Goswamis to write scriptures, and he himself listened to Bhagavatam every day. So, what is the relationship between that, Sravanam, and Sadhu Sangha and Harinam, even though it's independent? And the answer is that it is a good support because it's through that knowledge that we can do Harinam effectively and purely. So, therefore, along with the chanting the holy name, we do need some knowledge. We need some shiksha. So in that sense, we still need guru, because if we're going to get knowledge, we'd have to get it through guru. But not diksha guru, it could be shiksha guru. So therefore, the emphasis again is upon the shiksha rather than the diksha. In ISKCON, however, we kind of conflate the two things and we combine it into one. So when we talk about diksha guru, what we're expecting more is the shiksha. And when we talk about diksha guru, we rarely think about the diksha guru giving the mantras. We're talking more, he's giving us teachings. But anyway, technically, the diksha guru is giving the mantras a second initiation, not so much the teaching. Of course, he gives both, but that people don't regard as too important anyway, except for deity worship. So we kind of combine the two things together. At the same time, if we're going to call him a diksha guru, and if we're getting shiksha as well, fine. But apart from that, you can also have other shiksha gurus. And in some cases, the shiksha guru may be more important than the diksha guru, as we see in the case of, let's say, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He had a diksha guru, Bepan Bihari Goswami, but you hardly ever hear him mention it, and we don't mention it at all in this comment. So we trace the line through Jagannathas Babaji, who was a shiksha guru. So your shiksha guru may be more prominent than your diksha guru, even though they're not different in one sense. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the very beginning there, there's a whole discussion of shiksha and diksha, and the conclusion is that they are equal and they have to be given equal respect. But again, if one is giving more, then we put more respect to that person. So maybe the shiksha guru was giving more knowledge, so we give more respect. And then the diksha guru is also there. In some cases, the diksha guru may be more important, giving more shiksha, and so we give more respect there. But in any case, those two types of gurus are there, and we should make some sort of distinction according to the function, even though it may be the same person in many cases. Nevertheless, we should look for the function of the guru. And though the guru is giving the Diksha mantra, and that's also not different from Krishna, ultimately, it's the Shiksha which is more important. And if the Diksha guru can do that, fine. If we have to get Shiksha from others, then that's also wonderful. And we have to respect that person as guru. So that's basically where how we should do everything. Okay. Questions?
Any question online? Let me check. Yeah. Do you have a question?
Any questions?
Online? Any question? Not in the comment box. Nothing so far. Manoj,
Mhm.
you mentioned that it's all about question and answers, and we have to ask questions.
Yeah.
As you mentioned about Bhagavatam also,
Mm.
and they have been like, it's all about question and answers. That's how
Loudly.
we. That's
Mm.
how we. Yeah. So as you mentioned, that it's all about question and answers, which is
Yeah.
important,
Yeah.
and a disciple should be
Yeah.
asking questions. So it's important to ask questions, but also how important it is to focus on the quality of questions we ask.
Yes, when they say pariprashana, thorough questioning,
Yeah.
they mean thorough spiritual questioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, you should ask questions about spiritual life. And when the Sanatan Rupa went to Lord Chaitanya, then they say, "How can we get delivered from the material world?" So then he explains Bhakti Yoga and Harinam. Uh, Unfortunately, uh, when ISKCON we accept gurus, it's probably not there in other sampradayas so much, but in ISKCON particularly for some reason. When you accept guru, you expect the guru to solve all your problems. So therefore, you go to the guru, and your most important question is, should I quit my job and that job over there, or should I get married now, or should I have one children or two children? So these are the important questions that they want to ask guru, which are technically not even to be asked of the guru at all. But somehow these are the things we expect guru to answer for us. So that, in one sense, is a little bit disappointing because we're going to guru for the wrong things. And when pariprasha does not mean that. So we should have spiritual questions that we have to clarify. things which are for our spiritual advancement. This is not to deny that, of course, because we have material bodies and we're living in the material world, that's going to affect our devotional service, fine. But as much as possible, we shouldn't burden a guru with those problems. And even if he gives an answer, it may not be a perfect answer because usually the gurus are sannyasis and they can't even understand what you're doing in your grihastha life. So you shouldn't get any perfect answers from him for that. So the speciality of guru, of course, is because he's supposed to be spiritually advanced and have spiritual knowledge and scripture, etc. Then you go to him for those topics.
Who you had a question?
You can take the mic and people they can hear what you're.
Thank you, Maharaj, for this uplifting class that is so important for our realization, and we need more and more so that we can understand how important for us to to follow the instructions of Guru Maharaj and to serve him better. Maharaj, we know that in early 80s, um, you have been with Guru Maharaj in Mayapur. You have served as his secretary. So, can I could you please kindly give us some of your insights or maybe some of his pastimes so that we can take inspiration from that so that we can serve Guru Maharaj as it should be and in a better way.
Well, I suppose one of the main principles um, is that when he is giving advice to different people and whatever, and they're asking questions or they're writing letters, etc., uh, apart from general things, one of the main emphasis is that the people should work for a unified ISKCON and not try to do individual things away from ISKCON or away from the authorities. So they should also cooperate together, but it should be under some authority, not do anything independently. Uh, the tendency, of course, of individual jivas, because we're individuals, we have our own idea about how we want to do things. And everybody got their own little idea like that. And some people it becomes very is strong maybe by their nature or whatever. So then they want to do things in their way and they don't want to listen to what other people say. So in other words, uh, in order to have an organization, we do have to cooperate. And sometimes our own ideas and our own strong opinions and way of doing things, we may have to submit and not put those into implementation because there's other persons there. And we should look at the group rather than the individual. And so we have to cooperate. And so again, that Prabhupada gives the example, and Jayapataka Maharaj also gave the example that we have sticks, and if you can break one stick, and Prabhupada gave the same example. But if you have a bundle of sticks, you can't break it. So if ISKCON is unified, fine. If we have all sorts of different ideas and people know all sorts of different things and different goals, etc., then the unity gets split, and therefore the movement is likely to fracture because of that. So Prabhupada also wanted to keep the movement together, and he was thinking of ISKCON for thousands of years or whatever. So to do that, we do have to have that sort of willingness to cooperate with each other and not start splintering off into different groups.
A question I think is in everybody's mind is that why is sometimes we see, Guru Maharaj was very strong, and why he's going through so much suffering from one point. As some people speculate, they think, oh, it's because the disabled they are not following the instruction of Guru Maharaj, or is to understand that was part of his karma, or is to understand this is a test of the Lord on him, but he's very strong. So can you please clarify and share some light for us?
So of course the idea of karma of disciples or whatever we say, actions of disciples influencing guru, that is definitely stated in the scripture that because you accept a responsibility as a guru, those who are your followers, whether it's guru, disciple, or teacher and disciple, or husband and wife and children, or king and citizens and ministers, there's a kind of a shared responsibility there. And so if the disciples do some sinful activity, then the guru has to accept part of the result, not completely.
Mm.
In other words, it's not that because we're disciples and we commit sins, I'm free from sin. The Guru is going to get all my sins so I can do more sinful activity. Like committing sin in the strength of the holy name. No, that doesn't work like that, but at least some portion of the sinful reaction goes to the Guru. And therefore, Hari Bhaktivala says the Guru should not accept many disciples. But the Jayapataka Maharaj has the most disciples. Just imagine how much karma, even though it's not intentional, sinful activities or whatever, then he could get that effect. So that's there. However, we also know that bhakti itself destroys all sins and all karmas. So it can destroy your own sins, as you know, Ajamil Gala, his karma is destroyed in 1 second. Chanting the holy name. So if you're chanting intentionally, they can destroy all these effects as well as your personal karmas or whatever. So that should not be so much of a worry for persons practicing bhakti. For other persons, yes, it is a worry. If you're just a teacher and you got all these people and you're responsible for them and they're doing this, then it does become some problem because you're not doing bhakti yoga. If you're doing bhakti, it becomes less of a problem ultimately. Apart from that, of course, then of course, as we become more purified, we're destroying our karma, so we should get much less effect. And that's a general principle. But then, even if your karmas are destroyed, you may look like you're getting effects. And that's the example of Ajamil. All his karmas were gone, but it didn't look like his karmas were gone because he was still sinful and he still committed sinful activities up till his deathbed. And then he was supposed to get the reactions from the Yamadutas. So the explanation is that sometimes, though the karmas are actually destroyed through the process of bhakti, there's an appearance of karmas remaining. And it's also given that even if you're in prema, it may look like you're suffering. And well, is that karma or not? And he says, answer is no. Uh, it's an appearance of karma. So it's not really caused by reactions or whatever, but there's some pattern of suffering to the body that remains there and it's arranged by the Supreme Lord. So it's not, karma as such, it's arranged by the Lord. That's another thing. Another aspect is apart from karmas or shadows of karmas due to previous activities or whatever, in this lifetime itself, we do activities which affect our body, obviously. So I may not have a karma for getting diabetes, but if I indulge in sugar 24 hours a day for 30 years, and it's more likely I'm going to get diabetes or whatever like that. And it's not because of karma, it's just because I like sugar maybe instead. So it's not that, so things we do in this life also affect us.
Mm.
Yeah. And so our habits of this lifetime affect us and it may weaken our body, whatever. So that's another effect. So where Jayapataka Maharaj is always traveling around the world and he's got a weak heart, but then he doesn't worry about that and he keeps straining himself more and more because he wants to travel and preach. So that's another thing that he overstrains his body because he just wants to do more service for Krishna and Prabhupada. So that's could be another reason. So various factors are there. Another factor, of course, is the Lord himself. So we see the case of like the Pandavas who were Nitya siddhas and have no karma, but then they were, having suffering and 13 years of banishment in the forest or whatever. It's not karma at all. That's arrangement of the Supreme Lord for certain pastimes of his own. So there's another factor that comes in.
That's, you always see Guru Maharaj's, I know over the years you've assisted Guru Maharaj to herbal medication to maintain some of his, I don't know what to say, but I know you first time with Guru Maharaj supporting him through his difficult like diabetes or heart issues and herbals, Ayurvedic treatment and so forth. Are you able to share some of those with us?
Well, with his sickness?
Not sickness, but actually your god brothers' support to each other. In-
Helping him in preaching and whatever.
Oh, well.
especially in 80s when he first started doing.
Only with him for like 3 or 4 years as his secretary at one time. So therefore I was just assisting him or whatever like that. Even as I told him, actually, half the time he wasn't there because he was often out of foreign countries. So that's automatically one half of the time gone. So the other half of the time, of course, he was there. So sometimes he was in Mayapur and I was there. Sometimes he was traveling in India itself, and then I would be there also. So in that sense, I was with him maybe half of I don't know how long is his journeys abroad? What percentage of the time? Half or more?
Yeah, so
Half or more?
yeah, about 6 months.
At least 6 months, even more than that, probably. So then it was less than 6 months, at a time. And then of course, then some was in Mayapur and some were in other places. So then I got some association at that time. So the main thing that at that time is that the circumstances themselves were a little bit difficult because that was the 1980s and communications were not so good. So we spent a lot of time struggling just on communications, for instance. To make a phone call to Bombay from Calcutta, it takes you a whole day. And even when you get through, after you book your call and you get it through, you can't hear what the other person's saying. So you're trying to communicate and you're spending all your day just trying to make a phone call. So sometimes you have to use telegrams. Like Prabhupada also was using telegrams. But even that's little short sentences. So communications was a little difficult and whenever. And as I said, we didn't have computers at that time. So then I would be using a little typewriter, carrying a typewriter with us around. Probably typewriters are no longer available anywhere in the world.
No, in Calcutta they still use them outside the court.
The guys are typing on
Yeah,
that,
in
get
the
this
street.
legal papers.
Legal papers.
Yeah. So anyway, our communications, we had to struggle a lot with these type of things rather than do anything else. Well,
Answering all the letters.
yeah. And a lot of the time was spent struggling with that, plus the transportation itself. So we'd be going by train most of the time by train, from one place to the other, like that. So a lot of our time was just trying to organize all that part of stuff, the technical part of things as far as communications and transport is concerned. So anyway, within that time, then I did get some association with him. And as I said, the main idea was that he would be talking to people and whatever, either by letter or personally, whatever. And the main idea is trying to encourage people to, stay united and not fracture the movement by independent decisions and whatever.
Mhm.
He was given also the order by Srila Prabhupada to unite the whole Vaishnava community. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, so that
Or
was,
you want?
yeah. Generally, we stay separate from the other groups because they tend to criticize us and whatnot, even in Mayapur. But then Srila Prabhupada also at one point was thinking of how to unite all the Gaudiyas together, since just like ISKCON should not be divided, the Gaudiyas also should not be divided. So as much as possible, we try to unite them all as a force. And of course, one of the forces there are the other followers of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and the Gaudiya Mats, particularly with so many around Mayapur. So then Prabhupada himself made it was the Bhaktivedanta Swami Charity Trust as um, as a trust to try to help out other temples and things which were struggling like that. So he even give money to the Gaudiya Math, I think in the Yopin, I think give money to build their hall. That and
Repair the temple.
yeah, and other ones are not even Gaudiya Math, just separate groups like ancestral Shripats of the
But
descendants of
Samus.
the descendants of the Goswamis or the descendants of the associates of Lord Chaitanya or whatever. They have their own deities and whatever. So he made this trust to give money to them to renovate and repair and whatever to help them out. So all across Bengal, that's and even Bangladesh, uh, they try to help other people. So the idea is to kind of unite all the Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnavas particularly, together. So then Jayapataka Swami also got took up that responsibility afterwards, and he's the main, let's say, instigator of trying to get that Bhaktivedanta Swami Charity Trust active and whatever, and he's continue that throughout his preaching and whatever. So, and apart from that, of course, then every year now they have this meeting. I think on Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disappearance day, is it?
Yeah, we invite all the
Yeah, so they invite all the Gaudiyas together and they have a group meeting, whatever. So that's some attempt to get some, let's say, unity among the Gaudiya groups, particularly Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's group.
if we ask you what is the quality comes to your mind when you remember Guru Maharaj, what are the few quality that comes in your mind? It's prominent quality.
One of the qualities is always expand the preaching and make more disciples at the expense of his health.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, now his thing is to make more gurus because he knows he cannot, keep preaching like this. So he wants to make more gurus. So that's a new thing, which is again related to, expanding the number of people. But my point is that it doesn't have to be Diksha Guru to expand the movement. And primarily we're interested in Shiksha anyway. So we should expand the Shiksha Gurus rather than the Diksha Gurus ultimately. That's my point.
Something more about Vishwanath Chakravarti.
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
What
Give us
about
some more information about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
what about it?
Sripat, you're developing it. isn't
Oh
it?
yeah. So I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Um there is a place, I don't know how far it is from Ivor, maybe 3 hours away or 2 hours away, like that. That's his birthplace. So there is a place there with a little commemoration. However, they don't really want to have anything so much to do with this or whatever. So therefore, through the Bhaktivedanta Swami Charity Trust, we did purchase a separate piece of land right next to it, and now we're building a structure there on that at that land. So we'll have a little monument there and a little ashram, and there'll be some little bit of worship there, and of course they can use that for nam huts and things like that. For the local people, and it will commemorate that spot. And if devotees want to respect Vishnu Chakravarti's birthplace, they can go there, and there'll be some ISKCON devotees there to act as their guides and whatever, and they can even stay there. They'll have a guest room, etc. So it's not completely built up yet, but is in the process right now.
Right. You mentioned few times about unity and unifying and staying together. So sometimes in this day and age, it practically becomes like a challenge
Mhm.
amongst devotees. So can you share any kind of experiences or practical tips when challenging situations comes and how we can focus? Because as you mentioned, everybody has their own ideas
Mhm.
and everybody goes here and there.
Yeah.
But Prabhupada has also mentioned, and this is very important, as you said, it should not fracture.
Mm.
So any practical experiences or tips or anything which can help to
Mm.
uh, bring that unity in our mood.
Mm. So as much as possible, we try to keep everybody together. Nevertheless, um, some people have very strong ideas, maybe strong personalities, and they can't get around with along with other people. And we can try our best to keep them within the movement. Um, it may not be possible completely, but we have an alternative to that, which can be experimented with. I think that we're trying that now, is that people do have their own ideas and they don't want to change their ideas. And the main ISKCON has a little bit different idea about something. It could be philosophical, managerially, or policy wise, or whatever. Some people want to do more varnashram, some people want to do more something else, whatever, farms or whatever. They may have different ideas, and may not be exactly the policy that the GBC has right now, and they don't want to make that official policy. And at the same time, uh, they're still, loyal to Prabhupada and whatever. So how to accommodate them? Because if they're in, they may start criticizing ISKCON more and more because you're not doing this properly, you're not doing this properly, whatever, and it creates a little disturbance. So what to do? So if they're not going to keep their mouth shut because they do have strong ideas and they think they're right, then they may be right, whatever, but it's not the policy at the moment. So then next best thing is that they can be subsidiary group, kind of ISKCON at the same time, a little separate. And this is what happened in the Catholic Church. Different groups of monks decided, no, we don't like what you're doing because you're spending the money this way. And we think you should be simpler and act like true monks and, do more austerities and whatever. And main church was looking at, well, you shouldn't criticize us like that. So eventually they make a deal. Okay, you're still going to be recognized, but you stay a little separate. So they made Franciscans, and what else they made? Dominicans, and all sorts of different groups came out because individual priests had their own ideas, which are a little different, but not same philosophy, but a little different policy. So they made separate groups and then allow them to do their thing. And then they don't criticize. And that way they got their independence to do what they think is the way of doing it. At the same time, they're still part of the main church or whatever. So something like that could also be in ISKCON. they can be recognized by ISKCON in one sense, at the same time, a little bit separate with a different policy, and they don't interfere or criticize the main body. So that's one way of doing it. Others, of course, may have gross material motives, so we had to be careful of that. And if they're simply there for some personal motives, then maybe that they shouldn't even be part of ISKCON at all. It's going to be a completely separate group, and they may succeed or fail on their own.
Maharaj, can you tell us about the resolution of the GBC 2013 about Srila Prabhupada being the founder Acharya and Siksha Guru for the whole movement?
Oh yeah. Well, I think there's two resolutions on that. So one was done then. It's actually probably in response to Madhu Pandit.
Right.
Because Madhu Pandit said Prabhupada is the Diksha Guru. So then our stance was no, Prabhupada is the main Shiksha Guru. So Prabhupada is the main Shiksha Guru. What does that mean? So what it means is, as I said, we have Shiksha Gurus and Diksha Gurus. Now, Diksha Guru, of course, is one who gives you the mantra and like that. The Shiksha Guru is one who gives teachings. But the teacher can be of several sorts. And so one is a teacher who's teaching, like the Diksha Guru gives the mantra, so he's living. The other is a significant founder or acharya who also acts as the teacher, even if he's not living. So therefore, we can take Prabhupada as the founder of ISKCON, so he's put in one status as the primary Shiksha Guru for everybody in the future. And therefore, we can take him as Shiksha Guru, one type of Shiksha Guru. That doesn't, let's say, mean that we reject Diksha and Shiksha Gurus who are living also. But everyone should also give that proper respect. Yeah, so one of the main reasons for doing that is to emphasize Srila Prabhupada. And one of the main criticisms of the Ritviks is that Prabhupada becomes de-emphasized because we emphasize the living Diksha Guru, and everybody in the past is insignificant. So then Prabhupada gets demoted. So this is an idea of uniting ISKCON and elevating the position of Srila Prabhupada by stating that he is the primary Shiksha Guru for all devotees in the future as well. So that all devotees do have shelter of Srila Prabhupada, and they don't feel that, well, I don't have a guru of sufficient standing to take shelter of them. Shelter of Srila Prabhupada, everybody can do that. Which is somewhat akin to in the, let's say, Ramanuja Sampradaya, where Madhvacharya is the main shelter even after 1,000 years. They do have their individual Diksha Gurus and whatever, but still, they take you know, that Ramanujacharya is the main guru, in spite of the fact he's 1,000 years apart. So therefore, it's not uncommon to do that. So whereas the Ritviks are saying that Prabhupada is the Diksha Guru, and we say no, we say he can be the Shiksha Guru because there is historical precedent for that, but not for the Diksha Guru being in the past, communicating by tape recording or something is the mantras.
Maharaj, there's a question from the comments in the Zoom section.
Mhm.
Someone commented, if we don't have Bapu Seva with Diksha Guru, is it better to do Vani Seva, and are they equally good?
Is it?
If we don't have Bapu Seva with the Guru,
Okay. Yeah.
is it better to do Vani Seva, and are they equally good?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think Srila Prabhupada has said the Vani Seva is more important than the Vapu Seva. Of course, we don't reject the serving the body and, you know, directly physically serving the Guru. We see that Krishna and Balaram did that in Avantipur when they were serving in the Gurukul. And it's common, you know, that the disciple serves the Guru, you know, physically. That's if they are together. Now, at the present time at ISKCON, it's not the case. The guru is separated from the disciples, so you can't do the Vapu Seva unless he comes once a year or once every 5 years or whatever. You get a little opportunity. So therefore, that's not so prominent, you know, or common. And of course, that is one type of thing. We say, you know, Pariprashna and Seva, etc. But as I said, the other aspect of the seva was to follow the instructions. So that's actually more important. So, and it's supported by the Vapu Seva. So, if we don't have the opportunity for the Vapu Seva, then at least we carry out the Vani Seva, follow the instructions, and that actually is more important anyway. And so we can be satisfied with that.
What is the best service the disciple can offer to his guru?
Best service is to follow the instruction. In the purport, Vyavasatma Kabudi by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, where the Prabhupada said inspired him to follow Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's instruction to preach around the world, etc. That actual quote is because it's talking about one-pointed intelligence, not divided. So you're fixed in service to Supreme Lord. So in the purport there, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says, therefore, just as a sick person will take a medicine which preserves his life, and if he doesn't take the medicine, he dies. So the same way, the spiritual master, the order of the spiritual master is like the medicine that you take it. If you don't take it, you die spiritually. So then he said, you follow that order one pointedly, like the Gavasatma Gambudi. But then what is the instruction? The final instruction is to serve the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. So we have many different instructions Guru may give, but ultimately it's there so we can progress up to prema. So that should be our final goal. And the final order, Guru, somehow or other, your service should lead to that. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Something's happening there. We got somebody ceiling there.
Why is the ceiling?
1 second, Mataji. I'll just take that. We have to unmute Vrindavaneshwari Mahagopi Mataji. She will be leading Nrsimha prayers.
Okay. Vrindavaneshwari.
Vrindavaneshwari Mahagopi.
Something already done, wasn't it?
Maharaj, should I turn on the fan or something to make it?
No, something. Hold on.